Honourable House Chair, my Deputy Minister Maswale, the members of the new Portfolio Committee led by its Chairperson, Mr. Kaya Makaka.
House Chair.
Why are you rising, Honourable Matthias?
I rise on Rule 78 and 79 in their concurrent application.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm listening.
Madam Chair, as members of Parliament, we took an oath.
Can't sit here.
Honourable members, honourable members,
Don't instruct me. You don't have to
honourable
instruct me.
members, Honourable Gordhan, just stand there, please. You can't sit down. There's no chair. Honourable Pulsar, Honourable,
Chair, may I have your attention, please?
you are waiting. Honourable Pulsar, your member is standing on a point of order. Just be quiet. Let me listen to the point of order. You said you are standing on Rule 78. Okay,
Madam Chair, may I
continue.
repeat myself? I say I rise here in terms of Rule 78 and 79 in their concurrent application. We as members of Parliament, individually and collectively, were sworn in here and took oath of office. And that called on us as members of Parliament to take a higher level of responsibility
Honourable
and
member, what's
obligation.
your point of order? I don't need a speech. Hey, honourable member, I'm talking to the member who is on the podium.
Can you please be patient?
Honourable members, I'm not going to allow that.
Madam Chair, allow me to speak. and
No,
make my
no,
point.
we don't speak. We raise point of
I
orders.
raise a point of order.
Yes, do that.
We've got an obligation to protect Chapter 9 institutions, particularly the
Honourable
Office of
member,
Public
that's a point of debate and not a point of
The
order.
minister who stands before us here
Honourable Matthias, I'm
obliged,
not
like
going
all
to
of
listen
us,
to you anymore because
is
that is
obliged,
not
like
a
all
point
us,
of
to
order.
respect the remedial
Unfortunately,
action
we
of the
don't
public
have
protector.
honourable
And
members
his failure
and
to
guests.
do so rendered himself a constitutional delinquent.
Honourable Matthias,
And we saw no need to listen to a constitutional delinquent. And we
unfortunately,
cannot
honourable
listen
members,
to him. And therefore cannot
Honourable
allow him
members.
to address this house.
I'm not going to listen to you. That's
And
a
therefore we
point
cannot
of
Allow
debate.
him to address.
Honourable
this house.
Matthias, Honourable Matthias, please take your seat.
We
That's
cannot
not a
allow him
point
to
of order.
We cannot allow him to address this house because
Okay, if you
he
don't want
is
to-
a constitutional delinquent.
Can I respond to you? Can I respond to you? Please, honourable members, please be quiet. Honourable Matthias, you must raise a point of order. That thing is not a point of order, it's a point of debate. Whatever you are saying, Honourable Pauls, I'm talking to him. So that is not sustained. Continue, Honourable Minister.
Honourable Chair.
Thank you,
Chair.
Chairperson.
Yes.
You cannot rule on a point of order you have not listened out.
No, I listen to you. You
You
are
have not
giving a
yet
speech.
out my point of order.
I'm not going to listen to your speech. I need a point of order.
The point of order is that before us stand a constitutional delinquent,
No.
A man
Honourable
a
Matthias.
man who faces serious
Honourable
consequences.
Matthias, now I'm asking you for the last time. Take your seat. Or leave the house. Or leave the house. Order. Please continue, Honourable Minister.
Honourable House Chair, Cabinet colleagues, Deputy
On a
Minister,
point of order, House
members
Chair.
of the Portfolio Committee,
On a point of order.
Sanbonani.
On a point of order.
In a few days'
On
time,
a point of order, House Chair. Please rule.
What is your point of order? Please state the rule on which you want to raise your point of order.
Member Matthias have raised that rule. And you, Chairperson, you are not listening. You did not even allow him to speak and finish. You just ejected and you were just not listening. This man is not going to speak today. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And we are not going to leave the house. We are not leaving the house, and he's not going to speak today. He's not going to speak.
He's delinquent.
Can I speak? Please. What's happening with the mic? May I please say this, honorable members, politely so. This member that is in front of us is a member of the National Assembly. And at the same time, he's our Minister of Public Enterprise. If you are not, I'm still talking. If you are not going to listen to the minister, you can go. We are not going we're not going to allow disruptions. That's disruption. Continue, Honourable.
On a point of order, Chairperson. Point of order.
What is your point of order?
Chairperson.
Yes.
The
On what point are you
point
rising?
I'm rising on is the very same point that MP Matthias has raised on. Chairperson, we did not come here on anyone. We have got the responsibility. As
Honourable
members of this
member,
parliament.
that's not the time for speeches.
Chairperson. No, we did not come here on your call, Chairperson. We came here on the call of the people.
Member,
we cannot listen to you, and whilst you are not rational. You must be rational on the matters.
Honourable
we came
member,
here to protect the members of
please,
the community. No,
please
Chairperson.
take your seat.
No.
You are not going to take your seat.
But Chairperson, we have
Honourable member, take your seat.
On the point of order, Chairperson.
Take your seat. Let me tell you what the point of order is. The point of order is on Rule 92. Read it.
Chairperson, but MP Matthias has raised on the rules of this house. He has raised on the,
Honourable
on
member,
the rules of this house.
unfortunately I can't name you because I don't know your name.
I'm Honourable Komani.
But I'm going to ask you to leave the house.
No, I'm Honourable Komani. I am Honourable Komani.
Honourable member, who are you?
Honourable Komani.
Honourable Nkobani, thank you for sitting down. Whoever stands on the same matter will have to leave us in peace. Honourable members of the EFF, may I ask this question. Is that what all of you are saying? That he will not speak? Thank you very much. All honourable members of the EFF, please leave the house. You must call us by names. Don't call us by names.
House Chair. What you are doing is unlawful, is unprocedural. We are not a group here. We're individual members of parliament. And if you want to eject us from this house, you are compelled by the rule of this house to name us. And until you do that, you have no authority whatsoever to treat us the way you
Honourable
Matthias,
you know that you are giving me a task. I will start with you, Honourable Matthias. Honourable Matthias, are you saying the Honourable Minister is not going to speak here? I need the answer. Sergeant at Arms, Sergeant at Arms, Sergeant at Arms. Parliamentary security, please come in. Parliamentary protection services, please come in. Parliamentary security, please come in. Parliamentary security, please come in.
Don't point fingers. No. They must touch me. They must touch me. You out.
Roma, man, out. Out.
All right, so the budget vote speech of Pravin Gordhan, the Minister of Public Enterprises there, not allowed to begin by the members of Parliament representing the economic freedom fighters. They now have been asked by the presiding speaker to leave the House, and they've been escorted out of the Parliament by the security officials in Parliament there. They were saying that Pravin Gordhan is a constitutional delinquent, and therefore we could not continue to deliver his speech. So it seems as if things are calm now, and it's quite likely that the minister will be allowed to
Honourable
continue
members,
with his
let me
speech now.
apologize for what has just happened, and I apologize to our guests. I will allow the Honourable Steenhuisen.
Madam House Chair, may I address you in terms of Rule 69 of the Rules of the National Assembly?
Yes.
Madam Speaker, what we've just witnessed here is probably one of the grossest violations of parliamentary privilege I've ever seen. To prevent an elected member of this House from speaking in the House, and then not only doing that by exacerbating it by physically threatening the member, is a gross violation of not only the traditions of Parliament, but the rules of this House. And I'd ask you, House Chairperson, as a House Chair of this House, in terms of Rule 69, to refer all the members here, and I'm sure they'll be able to be identified on the video camera, to the appropriate forum, and that they be charged with gross disorderly conduct in terms of the rules. We can't have a place where this place becomes a battle of who can punch who the hardest or who can outshout the person. We use arguments, not force in this House, and I'd ask that to restore the dignity of this House and try and clean the stain that has been put on the floor of this House today, that appropriate action is taken against those members.
Thank you, Honourable Steenhuisen. Honourable Khadebe.
Chairperson, I totally agree with what Honourable Steenhuisen has just said, that this behavior cannot be tolerated anymore. I think that this is a democracy where the people must express their views, but in a proper way, not the way they've done. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. That will be looked into. Honourable Singh.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Chair, I want to also agree with what Honourable Steenhuisen and Honourable Member Dlamini has said. Hatebe has said. On behalf of the IFP, we also feel that this matter should be investigated at the highest level. We cannot allow this kind of disorderly conduct in the House.
Thank you very much. Luckily, we do have the footage, and I will communicate that to the Speaker's office.
Point of order, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank
Who's there? Oh, Honourable
you,
Sheikh
Chair.
Imam.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the NFP, I want to also concur with my colleagues. I think what has happened here today is totally unacceptable.
Thank you.
But I think what is more important, Chair, is this, that I want to agree with what the Honourable Steenhuisen says. But I think, you know, every crime, there must be a sanction that fits the crime. And I think that is the problem we have in this House. If we can just address that, I think we'll go a long way in ensuring
Thank you
that we can
very
do
much.
that. Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Swart.
Thank you, House Chair. What actually aggravated the situation even worse today was the threatening attitude towards the Minister.
And moving towards him.
Exactly,
Yes,
where I
thank
felt
you.
constrained to stand next to him, and I think that is absolutely disgraceful, and it's a higher level of threats in this House that must be addressed. So I concur with every speaker.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other party leader here? Thank you for all of you, and we will definitely take this to the relevant fora, and the speakers will be notified of what happened here today, and we will be advised as to how we proceed with the matter. Thank you very much, and I apologize to our guests for witnessing such. This is Parliament, anyway. Thank you. Honourable Minister, this is your time.
Thank you, House Chair. So let me start again. Honourable House Chair, Deputy Minister Maswale, honourable members from all the parties, boards, chairpersons, and members of the state-owned enterprises boards, executives that are running our state-owned enterprises, and fellow South Africans. Firstly, let me thank I'll come back to that in a moment. In a few days' time, we will be celebrating Mandela Day. It is also appropriate to acknowledge the 55th anniversary of the Rivonia trial today. This trial and those that faced the might of the apartheid state reflected the political, moral, and social courage of our leaders. The Rivonia trial is emblematic of the resistance to an evil system and demonstrated unrelenting courage to oppose injustice, racial oppression, and economic exploitation. This should remind all South Africans, particularly after what we have witnessed, and honourable members, of what it means to be bold in the face of adversity and uncompromising in fighting any form of malfeasance and corruption. And to that, House Chair, we can add attempted violence and intimidation. I have the honor to present the budget vote of the Department of Public Enterprises for the 1920 financial year. State-owned enterprises constitute a key part, as we all will acknowledge, of our national life and our national assets. They are central to our developmental and economic agenda. The reform of state-owned enterprises is part of a broader agenda of structural reforms in our country. The department provides strategic direction and oversight to the SOEs that it has been charged with responsibility for, so that their businesses are aligned with the national growth strategies arising from the National Development Plan, the medium-term strategic framework, and other guiding policies of government. Chairperson, over the last 18 months, we have attended to many crises at our SOEs. We have also increasingly understood the deep damage that has been visited upon these institutions and the far-reaching consequences of state capture for the economy at large. And if I may add, Chairperson, what you've witnessed is a defense of state capture. Because one must ask, what is it that motivates ordinary members of parliament, whichever party they come from, to engage in such intimidatory tactics? And the question you, ourselves, and the public must ask is, what do they have to hide? What are they guilty of? What is it that they don't want to be locked behind bars for? And intimidation of this kind, let me say very clearly and categorically, is not going to intimidate me and stop us from fighting the good fight. Many of my comrades on my right have been in detention, have been in solitary confinement, have been imprisoned for one reason or another, and face the might of the apartheid state. This is something that we're not going to give in to. Let me make it very clear. We've survived apartheid, we'll survive this fascist populism. The consequences of the damage to SOEs is felt in particular by the millions of the poor people of our country in the form of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. This has had a negative impact on government's ability to deploy SOEs in addressing our developmental objectives. Of course, the quantitative damage is immense and will only unfold over time. But to date, the department has collected some 3,000 forensic reports, 3,000 forensic reports from just 7 or 8 SOEs. So far, an estimated 600 million rands has been identified as collectible and due to the state. The department is collaborating with law enforcement authorities to ensure that criminal actions are reported and that civil recoveries are undertaken. The investigating directorate in the NPA, the National Prosecuting Authority, will fast-track investigations, including from the evidence presented to the Zondo Commission. The SIU Special Tribunal will adjudicate upon any civil dispute brought before it by a special investigating unit or any interested party. In June this year, a full bench of the Gauteng High Court set aside a multi-million rand contract unlawfully entered into between Eskom and Trillian, a Gupta-linked entity. The court was scathing about collusion between former Eskom officials and directors of Trillian and has ordered the company to repay almost 600 million rands of fees it illegally received from Eskom. Can I ask you to join me in congratulating the Eskom board in this regard? I'm sure we can do better than that. Eh? Of course, there's billions more to collect. Previously, McKinsey, another consultancy, repaid close to 1 billion rands to Eskom from the same contract. Similarly, Transnet has instituted legal claims to recover large amounts from the beneficiaries of the 1,064, what is famously referred to as the 1064 locomotives acquisition tender and related transactions. The Special Investigations Unit is investigating another 30 Transnet contracts, including property and IT contracts, the largest of which was worth more than 7 billion rands. Recently, the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, Hermione Cronier, or Miss Hermione Cronier, said that, and I quote, "The cost of state capture hovers around 1.5 trillion rands over the second term of the Jacob Zuma administration," close quotations. That is what these members who demonstrated their impatience earlier on, to call it politely, are defending. We must be frank that after a decade of mismanagement, negligible board and executive fiduciary accountability for poor performance, malfeasance that enables state capture, and rampant corruption, our biggest SOEs, amongst our biggest SOEs, many are in deep financial difficulties and will be unable, as the President pointed out several times, to trade their way out of their difficulties. The flight of good managers and technical skills who were chased out, inverted commas, by the capturers of these institutions has negatively impacted upon our SOEs. It has also impacted staff morale and work culture, especially from those who did not want to partake in corrupt activities. And of those, I'm sure they are the vast majority in many of these entities. In the last 18 months, we have begun the process of restoring good governance, skilled management and effective operations at the SOEs. Financial sustainability of the SOEs requires a lot more work, of course, and several state-owned companies face negative cash flows and are financing operations from debt, which has become increasingly difficult to raise. On the 23rd of May 2018, Cabinet approved a new permanent board for Transnet and similarly for Denel and many of the other entities as well, including SA Express. Many of these entities, of course, are also facing a changing global environment that they have to take into account both now and in shaping their future business models. The department, in turn, will have to be cognizant of this changing international space, if you like. The decline in trade intensity-driven growth, in other words, the amount of trade that has happened over the last 20 or 30 years across different countries is about to change as a result of the kind of protectionism that some of the bigger economies in the world are practicing. The impact on global value chains and the emergence of global protectionism, as I pointed out, will have an impact on SOE businesses and operating environments and models as well. So if there's less containers moving around, that will impact upon Transnet's business, for example. The role of our department, however, is going to change as well. We now have an opportunity to develop the department into a modern, ethical, effective representative of government as a shareholder of SOEs. This will also entail a new sense of pride and promotion of our collective national interest amongst the staff. The department must and will develop into a center of government excellence where the best experts and skills in the various sectors in which SOEs operate can be found. There is a need to relook at the role of the department as the shareholder ministry and to give a lot more content and meaning to what oversight over these entities actually means. See, there's cyber crime going on here. The time clock has disappeared. As far as a new approach to shareholder oversight is concerned, Chairperson, we want to outline the following, which we will elaborate on as we go on. The first is in respect of governance and accountability. Boards must be increasingly accountable for the financial and operational performance and repositioning of SOEs. The new approach will necessitate that we revisit all the instruments of SOE oversight, including the strategic intent statement, the shareholder compacts, the memoranda of incorporation, and SOE performance appraisal systems. Secondly, the SOEs must be more aware of the positive impact that they can and should have on the economy of the country by increasing investment in the economy, crowding in private sector investment in many of their projects and infrastructure, reducing the cost of doing business and the cost of living by reducing logistics costs and tariffs, for example, and promoting the growth of manufacturing linked to local procurement and localization. In addition, it can make a positive impact on the economy by creating both small and medium-sized businesses in larger numbers and contributing to the skills development in our economy and society as well. Looking into the future, the boards will be asked to review their current business models, and some of them have been doing so already, and develop models appropriate to the new conditions that are unfolding both within the country and outside. They should also develop financial sustainability plans over the next few months to ensure that SOEs are financially self-reliant in the medium term. In giving effect to its renewed efforts to turn around SOEs, the department will over the next 6 to 8 months work with the boards of the SOEs to develop new operating models for their businesses and develop financial sustainability plans for approval of government. This will focus on governance and accountability, and as I pointed out, conscious effort to become involved more positively in our economy and ensure that more enterprises are created, because that is what economic growth is about at the end of the day. With specific reference to some of the SOEs, Chairperson, Eskom, as we all know, and as the President has pointed out, and the board as well on many occasions, faces operational, financial, and structural challenges, which are driven by massive cost and time overruns on the new build program, some difficulties and collapse in governance over a period of time in the past, unsustainable debt levels, which stands at about 420 billion rands at the moment, underinvestment and poor maintenance of plants, and several other factors that we've outlined before. In seeking to stabilize the financial situation at Eskom in the short term, the Minister of Finance, as the President indicated, will introduce a special appropriations bill in Parliament in the very near future. He speaks later today, and I'm sure he'll give an indication to Parliament in this regard. As far as the operational performance of Eskom is concerned, what we will be looking at in the coming months is how the different episodes of load shedding can be avoided in the future. And Eskom and the department, with the assistance of the Department of Minerals, Resources and Energy and the National Treasury, will be producing a paper, as the President pointed out in his response to the Sona debate. And this paper will give an insight and indeed a forward-looking view on what the future of Eskom will be, and will outline the future energy environment, the financial arrangements for Eskom, address the indebtedness of Eskom, and lastly, the kind of restructuring phases that Eskom will undergo as we get into the future. Included in this will be an indication of further cost-saving measures in relation to coal costs, staffing costs, and the introduction of capital efficiency. Operationally sustaining a high level of energy availability is going to be an important task that the operations people within Eskom are required to give their attention to. The department will cooperate also with my colleague Minister Mantashe to finalize the NERSA Amendment Act to establish a proper recourse for regulatory decisions should Eskom or any other party wish to challenge those. In the news very much has been the Chief Restructuring Officer, and careful consideration is being given to this by both ourselves and the Treasury, and hopefully sooner rather than later an announcement will be made in this regard. As far as Transnet is concerned, Transnet's focus going forward is to improve the efficiency, reliability, and cost-effectiveness of its freight transportation by reducing the cost of doing business and improving the competitiveness of the country's exports. This is in line with the commitment government has made as part of the recovery and stimulus package that a review of port and rail prices will be undertaken. In addition, boosting exports and making South African industry more competitive than it is. We have confidence in the board to realize the objectives we have set for it, and the process of recruiting the new executive leadership at Transnet and in other entities is in progress as well. And we are expecting that the boards will put forward names of competent and capable executive members of the executive teams to lead these entities into the future. Transnet's operational performance can no doubt be improved further. Rail volumes have remained stagnant over the last MTSF period and well below the target of 330 megatons per annum set for the company. There has to be an increased effort to understand and respond to the needs of business, thereby contributing to economic growth and efficiency. The board and management will be set targets in the shareholder compact, as will other boards and management as well, to achieve these objectives. My colleague, the Deputy Minister, will address issues around Denel and Alexco. And let me, as I come to the end, Chairperson, say the following in relation to the program overview of the department. As far as the 2018-19 expenditure overview is concerned, the department was allocated 6.52 billion rands for 18-19. Included in the departmental allocation was an amount of 5 billion for the SAA recapitalization and 1.2 billion rands for SA Express. The allocation for the department itself was 273.9 million rands. The overspending or underspending of 48 million rands was the result of vacancies. And frankly, I didn't want to make any changes in the department pending the elections that have just occurred so that we have a better sense for what the President has in mind for this department. Once the departmental restructuring has been completed in the current financial year, many of these posts, particularly those involving experts in the different fields, will be filled. As far as the 2019-2020 allocation is concerned, the department has been allocated a budget of 293 million rands in 1920, 312 million rands in 2021, and 332 million rands in 2021-22. The allocation represents an average growth of 6.5%, that's just above inflation, and the department's focus over the medium term will be largely on enhancing the capabilities of the department in performing its oversight role on the various SOEs by ensuring that the pool of highly skilled professionals is augmented, as I pointed out earlier on. Program 1, which is Administration and Corporate Management, the aim of this branch is to provide strategic management and support to the department, but of course includes the ministry as well. Program 2, State-Owned Companies Governance Assurance. The priorities for this program over the year will be the goal of finally producing a government shareholder bill, which could be adopted in the next year or so, which will then create an overarching legislation for SOEs under the control of government. And this will, amongst other things, address governance, SOE mandates, the funding models, and so on. SOE reform is an ongoing process and will continue to review the SOE landscape emanating from the report of the Presidential Review Commission that was reported upon earlier around 2010-11. The main principles have already been approved by Cabinet. These seek to assess the SOE landscape and to ensure that there's regularity in terms of what happens in different SOEs in relation to remuneration, the appointment of boards, and the reform processes that are undertaken. Finally, Program 3, which is Business Enhancement, Transformation, and Industrialization. The priorities here will be to examine on an ongoing basis the maintenance plans, operational practices, electricity generation and distribution in the case of Eskom and other factors similarly in relation to other SOEs, and optimize the various assets that are held in different SOEs, some of which, as I said, the Deputy Minister will address. monitoring progress and working with Transnet in improving their cost effectiveness and efficiency and reliability of its freight transportation system, and achieving a modal shift from road to rail, something that we've talked about a lot as government and as the SOEs and indeed as the private sector, but haven't done enough at this point in time. Finally, let me take this opportunity to thank the outgoing chairperson of the SAA board, Mr. Magwaza, who's tendered his resignation for personal reasons, and the vacancies on that board will be filled shortly. Secondly, to thank the chairpersons of the various boards for their leadership and diligence under very difficult circumstances, and for the board members with the manner in which they've applied themselves both to managing the crises but also beginning to turn around, as we would say, the various entities. I want to pay particular thanks to the outgoing CEO of Eskom, Mr. Hadebe, who's present amongst us, who has played an important part in sustaining Eskom during a very difficult period and at least solving some of its financial problems as he goes about doing it. Finally, I wish the committee well in its deliberations and want to thank Mr. Tuto Shumang, a former official from the Treasury who went into the private sector 4 years ago and responded to the Tumamina call to come and help us in the department for the last 7 or 8 months. He says government work is too easy. He needs to go and do a more difficult job in the private sector. But we owe him a huge debt of gratitude for the excellent work that he's done with the department. And finally, as they say in the ANC, to the members of the EFF, in case they are listening, they better adopt a different approach, because intimidation and slurring one's integrity and casting aspersions is not going to work. If they've stolen money from a bank or anywhere else, they should own up to it and face the consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members that are still coming to the podium, that is not just a computer. There's a red color there. Once the red color vanishes, it means your time is up. Thank you. I will now call the chairperson of the committee, Honourable Magaka, to take the debate forward.
Honourable House Chairperson, Minister, Deputy Minister, and all protocol observed. On the 9th July 1987, a young revolutionary fighter, Ashley Kriel, affectionately known as Chikovara of Cape Flats, was brutally murdered by the apartheid police at a safe house in Athlone. His assassination 32 years ago robbed our struggle of the brave, fierce, and courageous revolutionary. His untimely murder inspired more gallant efforts leading to our ultimate triumph in 1994. This speech is therefore dedicated to the memory of the Chikovara of the Cape Flats. Throughout the course of our history, the liberation movement has always been able to analyze concrete South African and global reality in order to provide lasting solutions. It was under the same guiding force of the liberation movement that the multitude of South Africans gathered in Cape Town in 1955 and adopted the Freedom Charter as a basis and a minimum program of the Revolutionary Alliance to combat the reality of colonialism of a special type in our country. House Chairperson and honorable members, there are still many stubborn vestiges of colonialism of a special type. The only way to fight the legacy of colonialism is through execution of the National Democratic Revolution. For the ultimate resolution of the three major contradictions of our struggle, which are race, class, and gender, we must aggressively execute the revolutionary program of fundamental change which the people overwhelmingly support. Minister, the President highlighted 7 priorities for the new administration. While all are equally important, I would like to lift 2 that are extremely significant for this portfolio, particularly in pursuit of our developmental state, agenda. And they are: 1, economic transformation and job creation; 2, building a capable and ethical and development state. These priorities constitute the cornerstone of our agenda to reorientate our state-owned entities towards the attainment of the democratic and capable development state as a practical expression of our commitment to execute the national democratic revolution. We are in a revolution. To be clear, Honourable House Chair, our understanding of the development state is a state that derives political legitimacy from its record in economic development, which it tries to achieve mainly by use of selective industrial policy. Honourable Minister, we support the budget vote of the department precisely because we understand fully well that our pursuit of developmental objective to overcome the ligas of apartheid depends on capabilities geared towards a state-led reindustrialization process. Our state-owned entities are the economic levers through which the democratic state holds the possibility of directing investment, inclusive growth. House Chairperson, we must allow the department to embark on institution building, development of planning capacity, as well as ensure asymmetries between incentives and subsidies, and ultimately revenue generation, which our strategic state-owned enterprises. In the final analysis, we need a capable and ethical developmental state to be able to hold private capital accountable on investment priorities and the general developmental strategy. Comrade Minister, honourable members, let me ask him to say there will be rhetorical posturing from the far right and disillusional fantasies from the populist fascists who pretend to be in the left, by the way. This I characterize as criticism without critical thought. It has become predictable that neoliberal circles parrot tactics and agendas that advocate for the privatization of the state-owned enterprises. The advocates of these discredited orthodoxy do not have the interests of our people, because if they did, they would desist from advocating for appropriation of social and collective assets for private wealth accumulation. They advocate for giving free license for primitive accumulation by people who only socialize the risk and losses, yet privately appropriate the gains. Objections of the mantra of wholesale privatization derive from, among others, the observation by a renowned scholar, Noam Chomsky, when he said, I quote, "Predictory capitalism is incapable of meeting human needs that can be expressed only in collective terms, and its concept of competitive man who seeks only to maximize wealth and power, who subjects himself to market relation, to exploitation and external authority, is anti-human and intolerable in the deepest sense," I close quote. Honourable Minister, we concur with the President's views that Eskom, as well as other state-owned enterprises, are too important for our economy to be allowed to fail. We must state categorically clear that Eskom and all these state-owned enterprises must be stabilized and all corrupt elements weeded out in order to return to revenue generation path for economic development. In this respect, Honourable House Chairperson, we must commend the work of the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises of the 5th Parliament. It's very important, that one. We must commend the work of the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprise of the 5th Parliament in unearthing the scandalous corruption and governance decay that plague our most vital state-owned enterprises. These actions actually are still resisting the work of that committee. We must call upon the Special Investigative Unit and the National Prosecuting Authority to expedite investigation and prosecute all those implicated. We must see people being arrested for wrongdoing. In this age of renewal, we have a duty to act and root out corruption, and we must do so with speed and efficiency. We can't wait for Zondo to finish, the Commission of Zondo to finish. We must do it in the interest of restoring the credibility of the state and the revolution. For it was the German philosopher Karl Marx who once observed that, I quote, Philosophers have only interpreted the world. The point, however, is to change it. Let's change it. So let's follow this instructive observation and act swiftly and change the narrative and improve the image of our country. Department of Public Enterprise currently oversees and is government's shareholder representative for about 7 state-owned enterprises. There is no doubt that these state-owned enterprises have a huge responsibility towards fundamental socio-economic development. The budget vote is essential to the department's oversight function. In 2019-2020, a total of 293 million is allocated to the department.
Unfortunately, Honourable Chairperson, your time has expired. Can you check the clock on your left?
We have already submitted. I did say that.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Honourable Matsoni of the DA.
House Chairperson Barato, Honourable Minister, Honourable Deputy Minister, fellow members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. Minister, allow me to demonstrate how one disagrees as a Democrat and not like the fascist behaviour we've just witnessed in this House. I now serve my 3rd term as a Member of Parliament, Member of the National Assembly of the Republic of South Africa, and I serve my 7th year as a Member of the Portfolio Committee of Public Enterprises. I'm now more convinced than ever that this department should not exist. It is public knowledge that the Department of Public Enterprises was established as a catalyst for privatization of the public entities that were put under the control of the department. It makes no sense otherwise for Eskom not to belong to energy and mineral resources. Transnet should belong to transport. Denel should belong to military defence. Alexcor should belong to energy and mineral resources. SAA, SA Express and Mango should belong to transport, and Safcol should also belong to energy and mineral resources. The problem here is that political expediency and differences in ideology have trumped pragmatism and good governance. An opportunity was exploited to use state-owned entities as an employment agency for the ANC and for a cash cow for their investment wing and election campaigns. It was just too easy to use the public enterprises to siphon billions and billions of rands to politically connected families and companies, not to mention the lining and building up of pension funds of politicians, with the odd general thrown in just for good measure. We have to be the only country in the world which has allowed people who are well known to have carried out one of the greatest heists of all time to go unpunished. In fact, in South Africa, you can admit that you attempted to bribe someone on instruction from criminals and remain not only a member of Parliament, but a chairperson of that very same Parliament. In South Africa, the Department of Public Enterprises is proof that all international investors use to measure our corruption levels is the cause of their choice investment destination to be anywhere but South Africa. It matters not how big the Department of Public Enterprises is. It matters not how small the Department of Public Enterprises is. It is a superfluous entity and it should not exist. I recently wrote to Minister of Public Enterprises, Minister Gordhan, asking for an official comprehensive review to be conducted of the state-owned entities. The reply I received came as no surprise. Again, the ever-famous, yet ever-elusive Presidential Review Committee established in 2010 was referred to as the guiding framework for the department. In response, an interministerial committee was established that was then converted to a presidential state-owned entity council. This council is supposed to reposition the SOEs as an instrument of economic development. Now, we've had review after review, task team after task team, commission after commission, but here is the fact. State-owned entities are archaic in their design and they should not be used for economic development. They do not work. The economy should be growing by supporting a free market system which gives South Africans choice and which gives South Africans opportunity to create a conducive environment for national and international investment. You cannot grow an economy when you are held ransom by unions, who cripple state-owned entities when their demands aren't met. You cannot grow the economy when your energy supply is not completely secure. And you cannot grow the economy by pouring billions and billions of rands into already failing entities. South Africans are literally starving. 10 million South Africans are unemployed. South Africans do not have homes, they do not have water, they do not have electricity, they do not have basic services. Our schooling is rated as one of the worst in the world. Our crime rate is completely out of control. But yet, South Africans are still expected to fork out billions and billions of rands in bailouts for these failing entities. It is an absolute disgrace and it is not condonable, no matter what your political ideology is, nor what your political background is. The Department of Public Enterprises has absolutely zero power to hold our entities to account. The boards do as they please. Unions play the minister like the fiddle that Nero played while Rome burnt. The situation is unfixable. Quite simply, my friends, the cow has run out of milk. The goose has laid the last golden egg. The fiscus is collapsing under the weight of corruption and mismanagement. It is hard to imagine that in the year 2019, in a country as fiscally unstable as ours, we still have a government who dares to justify the blatant theft of South African money. The most frustrating part of it all is we actually really do have the power to completely turn the South African economy around. But because of ANC factional battles, because of a sheer lack of guts and determination, because of fear of retribution, the government lets the criminals win and the South Africans remain poorer, locked in a cycle of poverty, and the situation becomes ever more dire. It is time to put the South African people first. Political factionalism in the governing party is literally killing our country day by day. Let us be the parliament that does the right thing. Let us be the one who stands up to the looters and the criminals. Let us be the ones who are what we intended to be, the custodians of the South African coffers and the defenders of our people.
Thank you, Honourable Matsoni. The Honourable Nkosi Buthelezi from the IFP.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson, Minister and colleagues. Allow me, Chair, to thank the Honourable President and the Minister for their commitment and proud will to turn things around from the previous administration. In the past, ministers defended the road and attacked members of this House when they were raising issues. The role of this department is to drive investment, productivity, and transformation in our state-owned entities, unlock growth, drive industrialization, create jobs, and develop skills. The success of our SOCs in driving economic growth is critical, yet this has not quite been the case in the past. Instead, Chairperson, this department is truly the definitive poster child of this government in respect of grand corruption, kleptocracy, nepotism, and care deployment. The crippling of SOEs has played a major role in the country's drop in international trading ratings. In fact, it can be easily argued that the last decade in the history of this department was spent building nothing more than patronage networks through the misappropriation of public funds and elites aligning their own pockets. While we trust that the Minister has the will and expertise to address the failing state of our SOEs, but the question remains, will the Honourable Minister have the support from the ANC in cleaning up these SOEs from within? That's a question we ask. The various challenges faced by SOEs are internal and includes weak, inexperienced, and incompetent leadership, which can affect our entities strategically, operationally, and financially. Honourable Chair, Eskom continues to fail our people, not only by failing to keep our lights on in the country, but it also charges more for poor services through its continual tariff hikes affecting the poorest of the poor. Chairperson, what is of great concern is the fact that government departments, municipalities, and cities owes Eskom billions of rands, and this is unacceptable that these bills have remained unpaid for years. But more importantly, this self-sabotage must be rooted out. On SAA, another entity of perennial bailouts, staff issues, and dubious senior manager appointments, we note many similarities. It's all from within. It is not time, Honourable Minister, that we cut our losses and consider public-private partnership in these state-owned entities? Honourable Chair, just 2 weeks ago, Daniel had to request 2.8 billion rands bailout and could not pay salaries in full at the end of June. What does this do for staff morale? What does this say about the competence of senior financial management in these entities? Staff retention is affected due to instability. Who can work for a company when things are unstable within? Furthermore, when we talk about Daniel, we are not just talking about any company, but one which is part of ensuring the safety and security of our country. If Daniel is led to fail, this may pose a risk in future to the sustainability of our nation's security. Honourable Chairperson, a line must be drawn in the sand, which clearly states and demarcates this far and no further. Corruption must be thoroughly investigated and competently prosecuted at all state-owned entities. The fact of the matter remains, South Africans can no longer afford to pay more for SOEs who are not fulfilling their mandate and do not add any value in as far as this is concerned. If we look at the strategic objectives of state-owned entities, which is economic transformation, there is absolutely no progress in this regard. When it comes to job creation, instead of creating jobs, SOEs can't even manage to retain jobs. When it comes to building a capable and ethical state, we've got a rod that is embodied from within, thus undermining the very same objective. A better Africa and the world. How is this even possible when we are currently on our knees? This is the reality that we must face, Honourable Minister, and this department is an enemy of its own and a counterproductive if it fails to deliver on its own key performance indicators. However, in our commitment as the IFP to work in the best interest of people of South Africa, the IFP does not oppose the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Inkosi Buthelezi. Van die FF Plus, ons het achtbare lidwissels.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. House Chair, what we saw here today is absolutely disgraceful. And Honourable Minister, through you, House Chair, we respect you and we stand behind you in your fight against those who looted and who captured the limited resources of our beautiful country. We want to tell you, Minister, do not stop your fight. Do not be intimidated. Do not be held ransom by those, as we saw here tonight, who wants to protect themselves. On that point, I wonder where the Honourable Malema is tonight. But if we look at fascism and the history thereof, you also didn't see Hitler anywhere near the trenches or the gas chambers. The Honourable Malema is most probably sitting in Camps Bay whilst his troops must protect him. To save our SOEs and our fiscus, and so doing our economy, we need the political will to address the problems and to actually get our SOEs back on track. To act against those who transgressed, those who looted, and those who stole, but also to prevent it from happening ever again. And then, Honourable Minister, through you, Chair, you can also not be held ransom by the alliance partners of your own party. The trade unions can also not be allowed to hold you ransom, not to take decisive action and to actually take those steps needed to get our SOEs profitable. Let's compare some of our SOEs to a former state-owned, wholly state-owned entity, Telkom, which is now partially state-owned, 40.5%, and who is now profitable. The latest financial results show profit after tax of Telkom rose by 11.5%. They also paid in taxes 1.2 billion rand and 750 million rand in dividends to government. That in comparison to SAA and Eskom. SAA needs 22 billion rand in the next 3 years from our fiscus, and Eskom requires 69 billion rand. The turnaround of Telkom, however, did not happen overnight, and that we know. But we need to start somewhere. and the trade unions are stopping government from actually doing what is necessary. Also, Minister, do not be held ransom by ideology. Let's take the steps to save our economy and our fiscus and actually act in the best interest of all South Africans. Then, let me also say and take this opportunity to reflect on today. Today is a bad day after what happened here, but it's also a good day. 119 years ago today, there was the battle at Silicon Neck. En by daardie veldslag, agbare voorsitter, is die Engelse oorwin. 'n Baie belangrike stap in die stryd teen kolonialisme. 'n Stryd wat baie jare geduur het, maar 'n belangrike stap. Vandag is ook belangrik, agbare voorsitter, want gister het iets baie belangrik gebeur. Gister is die tendens wat op 8 Mei geskied het, waar kiesers hulle vertroue in die Vryheidsfront Plus gesit het, voortgesit. Toe die Vryheidsfront Plus met 'n geweldige meerderheid die DA gewen het in wijk 30 in Stilfontein. Not 7 votes. We had more votes than all 4 other parties who contested together. So don't continue your lies. The voters out there see that there is an alternative. That there's alternative policies which can save South Africa, which can save our SOEs. And those voters in Ward 30, in Matlosana, in the Northwest, yesterday put their confidence in the Freedom Front Plus. That growth will continue. It will continue towards 2021. And we say to the ANC, we will be the opposition that you actually require. We actually oppose your policies. We don't only want to win you, we want to oppose and actually work together with you as well to better South Africa in the interest of all South Africans. Not only here or there, but in the interest of all South Africans. And that is what we need, Honourable Minister. We need cooperation. We need to, as South Africans, all be proud of our state-owned entities, be proud of our government departments. We need to take a stance, all of us as South Africans, against corruption, against the looting, but also against what happened here this evening, against those who want to act lawless. And we must take a stand to the best interest
Agbare
of
lid,
South Africa.
ongelukkig
Thank
u
you.
se tyd is nou om. Ons gaan nou voor. Adjunct Minister. Agbare lid Maswali.
Thank you so much, Honourable House Chair, Minister Pravin Gordhan, the honourable members of the House, the chairpersons of the boards of the state-owned companies, as well as their executives, the honourable guests in the gallery, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, nearly good evening. Firstly, Honourable House Chair, I wish also just to enlist my voice in expressing disgust at the deplorable scenes we have witnessed here at the start of this session. I am most confident that many peace-loving South Africans out there who want peace, prosperity, and progress are enraged at witnessing some of those occurrences in this, their parliament, the expression of their collective power. I have no doubt in the ability of Parliament to ensure that its dignity and standing is protected as well as restored in the face of the people who are yearning for this institution to do what is good for them. Participating in this debate, Chair, I wish also just to say we've been recently to elections, and elections, overwhelmingly our people showed their support to the various political parties here. Of course, they also gave the ANC the responsibility to lead governance. And in that respect, we have a duty to respond to the cries of our people. We are not going to come here and cry like others, raise our hands in the air in hopelessness. We've got to make sure that we bring forth the changes that our people aspire. In this respect, the President has, in his State of the Nation address, asked of us all to buy into a vision for this country, a vision that looks beyond the perils and challenges of today, a vision in which we have a sense, a view, solutions to the problems that we are currently facing. That vision imagines South Africa as a country that has embraced the fourth industrial revolution, and in many instances that is exemplary to the world. In that vision, I also imagine that we would see our state-owned companies being agile companies, effective businesses that deliver reliable services to the country. The SAA, that is the beacon of our national air carriers, self-sufficient and working efficiently in a united Pan-African-led air travel ecosystem that competes well in the global air travel space. That vision, Honourable House Chair, is not a new one. In fact, it is a reimagination of what we once were and could be again. Our SOCs have been plagued by many challenges, as have been outlined, and these, if left unabated, will surely result in their collapse and failure. Honourable House Chair, it is true that corruption and malfeasance has crippled not only our SOCs, but our country as a whole. It has tarnished the good standing that some of our SOCs held in the world and has brought some of them nearly to their knees. However, Honourable House Chair, we cannot allow this to render us to a failed state. As a government and a department, resolute behind the leadership of Minister Gordhan, we are determined to root this all out at all levels. We are addressing the structural challenges facing our state-owned companies and are taking tangible steps to diversify their service and product offerings. They must be market agile and fit for purpose. The interventions we implement must be efficient solutions. It must bring efficient solutions and safeguard the interests of all our people in ensuring that the services are provided in a cost-effective manner. Specific, Honourable House Chair, to the South African Airways, as the Minister has so indicated in his introduction, we are making a number of interventions in that respect, but we have a concrete reality in which we've got to comprehend with. The reality of our domestic aviation environment is that it is effectively deregulated and therefore robustly competitive. International aviation, although somewhat regulated through a bilateral air agreement system, is also by and large free and competitive. If our airline assets are to effectively compete and survive in this environment with a minimum drain on the fiscals, it is imperative that they be turned around and be made fit for purpose. Our board, in this respect, will be working in urgency to address the decline of the airline and its ancillary business, and this must be founded upon the appointment of a world-class executive leadership team with credible aviation experience. As I had indicated, Honourable House Chair, we will not let our SOCs fail. We are committed to ensure they serve and support the national development agenda. But having said that, the airline must undergo a rigorous and substantial process of reducing costs, improving efficiencies, as well as strengthening its operations. A comprehensive review of its domestic, regional, and international routes will be undertaken to minimize losses. Non-core assets which currently distract the management from attending to its core activities need to be relooked at and possibly disposed of, those that could not be profitably used by the institutions. We must stress that our state-owned companies that are working within limited budget framework, we've got to look at a diversity of fiscal injections financially so that the fiscus is not exerted unnecessarily. Honourable House Chair, I am looking at the clock. I must try and run very fast. I have to also attend a few of the things that have been stated here. In this, we do want to work collaboratively, as the President has said, because the challenges we face belong to all of us, and we must work hand in hand to solve them. It's not only for the department, it's not only for the state entities, the state-owned companies, the boards. It is also for all in those entities, labor, as well as the private sector. We've got to collaborate to find solutions to some of these difficult questions for which we have begun taking measures in that respect. Regarding Entail, I want to say summarily, it's not that doom and gloom. Yes, there are immediate challenges, but certainly there is also a pipeline of opportunities that, properly followed, that institution is poised to change for the better forever, and it is possible through the collaborations that one is talking to. The honourable members that spoke before me here, Honourable House Chair, particularly the longest serving member in the Portfolio Committee in which I attended, Honourable Mazone. Certainly we do appreciate the working collaboration, the views, the inputs from all of us given the nature of the challenges we have. I've heard you, and you've repeated this, that you have corresponded with the ministry in respect of a request or a proposal that they be convened or they be undertaken another comprehensive review of these state-owned companies. If I listen to you, you also say that there has been many of these reviews that have been done, and indeed there seems not to be action. I don't know how different it is going back again to doing the same thing. I think what we need to be doing is to take forward the work of the Presidential Review Commission. All of us work to make sure that it is successfully implemented, and in that respect, measures have already been undertaken. The SOC Council has been instituted. We'll be coming back to the committee to report progress in respect of the intervention so desired as mapped out from that state-owned SOC's council as led by the Honourable President. That the department need not to exist is no different from those who come here to disrupt proceedings. It just works in the same way, but from different angles. I think we must really desist from that. Let's, in a constructive way, work to building to take forward some of these than simply just hopelessness and destructiveness in that sense. I also take the point, in fact, it is completely without justice to say when measures are in place that this government is letting scot-free those who have stolen to run away with it. Certainly that is not true. If one looks at what has been put in place, the sort of interventions that are, in fact, it is a misstatement. If to any statement that suggests that government has let scot-free those who have actually stolen from the government, it is a misrepresentation of facts. Let's look to the measures that have been put in place. In fact, the President has led quite a brave effort to ensure that the NPA is actually given capacity. They are working on it. And this is what I think, instead of just crying, raising heads up, we should hands up. Let's work together to get this thing done. Honourable Telezi, I also think that is the same. We really are looking to working with all South Africans, including political parties, in dealing with the challenges that we have. Certainly, we need that environment in order to see to it that the transformation we really much need can take place. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Honourable Chair. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister.
Chair.
Honourable Mhlawumbe.
Yeah, I did not want to disturb the speaker on the podium,
Is that the
but
point
I'm
of
raising
order?
a concern that Honourable Milham at the gallery is tempted to heckle, and is heckling while he's on the gallery, which may pose some questions to us that are members of the gallery.
Noted.
Yes, you
Thank
must
you.
come to this side. Thank you.
Please refrain from doing that. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, there are seats now, Honourable Miller. Okay. There were no seats, but here we have seats. Thanks. We now call on Honorable Mkwanazi from the ANC to take.
Honourable Chairperson, Minister, Deputy Minister, Honourable Members, Honourable Guest, Umzantsi wonke we-Africa, good evening. As we debate this budget, we must be bold, have a clear vision, and have ethical leadership, guided by the ANC policies and the mandate given to us by the millions of South Africans. We must not dare to fail them or betray them. We must not lose focus, Honourable Chair, on a vital role of state-owned companies in generating inclusive growth, providing efficient and cost-effective network services, and deliver public services to both those who can pay and those who cannot. We have a responsibility, Honourable Chair, to restore them to be able to perform their mandate to their best capacity, and to encourage a significant new investment in our economy with the aim of achieving sustained inclusive growth and transforming our economy. Honourable Chairperson, just to remind us, because there are so many howling and misguided concepts out there, our Eskom mandate. The mandate that we have given Eskom is to generate, transmit, and redistribute electricity to industries, industrial, mining, commercial, agriculture, and residential customers and redistributors. To improve the quality of country's infrastructure will ensure a reliable and a cost-effective electricity supply to its mission. And development of economic growth, and to deliver to the ANC-led government mandate on its commitment to advance skills development, especially to our young people. We are noting the challenges facing Eskom, Honourable Chair. As Honourable Minister put it very well on the Sona debate on the 25th of June 2019, open quote, a democracy that continues to build on the achievements and successes on the past 25 years, while having the humility to admit to the weaknesses and the mistakes of the past, close quotes. Eskom, yes, we all agree that it's experiencing severe financial, operational, and governance challenges, and that challenges has impacted on the performance of the economy and placed pressure on our fiscals. The escalation of municipal bill and Soweto debt plays a huge impact in terms of Eskom cash flow, and it's growing on a billion rand a month. Owing to the difficult economic conditions, abantu bakithi abahlala ngaphansi kwazo, and the rampant culture of non-payment in the country. But we are encouraged about the program, Eskom and all the stakeholders, including the government departments, in dealing with the effectiveness and efficiency on the services given to our people, and also working with all the relevant stakeholders to encourage those who can pay to pay for the services. Structurally, Eskom, we are lacking transparency regarding the cost and the allocation of resources that make it difficult for the Eskom to understand its own competitive advantages. Cost overruns and poor performance on the build programs, as we have observed, and the Minister has alluded to that, on the Medupi and Kusile, has suffered the massive delays and cost overruns due to poor planning, poor engineering designs, and poor procurement practices that led to systematic corruption and has compromised the credibility of Eskom. Noting that, Honourable Chairperson, guided by the 54th National Resolution 23 of the African National Congress, that said on the firm action, we need to take a firm action required to improve government and performance of the state-owned companies. The lesson learned is clear. For the growth, we need a reliable, sustainable supply of electricity. We are on our path to recover, and we are noting with great hope, Honourable Chair, the appointment of the new Eskom new Eskom board. We find joy and encouragement from the passion, commitment, and excitement among the thousands of South Africans who really want to make this entity work, not the howlers, but the doers, as the President alluded in the Sona. Amongst other challenges that the board is addressing currently is the readily availability of the installed capacity, the electricity availability, focus on the power station, ensuring timeless maintenance and quality of work to be delivered to our people, because we are not here for the beauty contest. We are here to make sure that we deliver quality services to our people. The progress that is made by the board in installing the culture of effectiveness and transparency on government, confirming the number of fraud and irregularity cases is exciting, as now the minister was reporting on those cases. Those who don't listen, it's not our baby. We are continuing.
Thank you very much on that note.
We support, Honourable Minister, we support the board and will not fail.
Thank you very much.
The giant that
Thank
stood
you.
before us.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Shaik Imam is in the house. Are you coming to speak? I see you were writing me a note. At least you are here.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. I've been running from one house to the other, and there's a delay on that side as well. But at the very outset, let me welcome the report of the Department of Public Enterprises, and the National Freedom Party will support the report tabled here. Minister, I want to congratulate you on the stance that you are taking. And yes, indeed, I do agree with you that if you want to stop corruption, if you want to stop fraud, then of course you have more enemies. When you do the wrong things, you have more friends. When you do the right thing, you have more enemies. So I congratulate you on the stance that nothing will deter you from ensuring that we live in a society free of any corruption. Now, Minister, I have previously, on numerous occasions, asked, what is the real challenge that we have, that when it is a state-owned entity run by governments, we have a problem? But when it is in the hands of the private sector, then it's managed and it's profitable. Now, I know one of the reasons and what we've identified was the fact that there's been interference by government officials with the private sector, there's been corruption and a whole lot of it. And my understanding is this, that would it not be easier and more successful if it had independent management with no interference from us at all, so that it is run as a business, it's profitable, but also provides the services intended in terms of its mandate. Now, that's the first thing. The second problem I have is with South African Airways. Now, Minister, South African Airways came and did their briefing even at the Appropriation Committee, wanting an X amount, which was about 23 billion or so. And you will, and I understand in terms of business, that if you need 23 billion to solve your problems and become even and start becoming profitable, and if you give somebody in tidbits 2 billion, 3 billion, 1 billion, it's not going to work. And the CEO there had expressed concern on numerous occasions. And I'm not surprised that he's resigned, because it looked like he was now being set for failure because he was not getting the tools to be able to turn South African Airways around. Now, South African Airways itself is not only the problem. If you look at some of the challenges it faces in terms of the routes, you've got other airlines, and this is where the aviation industry comes in. You're giving routes to other airlines, and you're expecting your own airline to make money. Someone's going to argue, what about competition and things? But surely you need to put the needs of your own people in your country first. So you're giving routes. Even some of the international airlines are flying, where previously our own airlines used to transport them from OR Tambo to Cape Town and things. So that's basically another challenge that we're not addressing, and yet we're expecting SAA to make a turnaround. Now, the issue of Eskom, and I must commend you on the interventions, Minister, that you are putting in place.
Honourable Member, thank you very much.
Thank you, the National Freedom Party.
Honourable Swart.
Thank you. We support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable Minister. The ACDP fully appreciates the severe challenges the SOCs present, not only to the fiscus, but to the economy as a whole. We saw a 3.2% contraction in GDP for the first quarter of the year, which many attribute to Eskom's load shedding. And we were given the impression that the massive amount Treasury set aside each year for 10 years, that will be 230 billion, would be enough of a bailout for Eskom. Now it appears that this may be insufficient and that Eskom may need more than the first year's allocation of 23 billion. And this is deeply disturbing. And we as parliamentarians will need to exercise our oversight over any proposed bailout. And this we will do when the special appropriation bill is introduced. Now, Minister, having served on the Eskom Oversight Inquiry in the last Parliament with a number of members here, like the Honourable Mazzoni, we have some idea of the looting that took place. However, the further evidence before the Zondo Commission has given an indication of the far greater severity of state capture and corruption that occurred at the SOCs. In this regard, we are, however, pleased that there has been some recovery, and well done to Eskom for the recovery of the almost 1 billion rand, which was repaid by McKinsey, mainly at our encouragement to go after that money. And then, of course, the 600 million that was recovered from Trillian via a court process. So much more needs to be done in this regard. And those that have been involved must not only the money be recovered, but they must be arrested and charged. And I've long said, we don't have to wait for the Zondo Commission. And another member said, we don't have to wait for that. Let us go after those that are involved in state capture. Now, if one also considers the role of certain compromised companies, that must also be considered. The role of Trillian, Tegeta, McKinsey, the role of Bain and KPMG played in the hollowing out of SARS. These private entities must also be held accountable. And the question is, as is indicated, Minister, whether I think these were your words, a hurried apology and the repayment of fees is sufficient. We think not, and we consider the damage that is done to the country. And of course, we also where I serve on the Justice Committee, we did receive an update from the NPA boss, Advocate Shamila Batohi, and the new head of the Investigative Directorate, Advocate Cronier. They are investigating. Progress is being made, but clearly there are budgetary constraints in that regard. And these are complex matters. Forensics, they are very complex, requiring a lot of funding. In addition, both the asset forfeiture and special investigation units are making progress, and we welcome the special tribunal, which will expedite civil claims to recover ill-gotten gains expeditiously. Chairperson, I have also long argued that those units need to have their budgets increased substantially so that they can quickly recover the ill-gotten gains. Minister, just lastly, the extent of the pushback of the reformist agenda and the holding to account all those implicated in state capture is evident, no more so than today, with the disgraceful conduct that we saw in this House. We in the ACDP condemn it in the strongest possible terms. And we agree that what we witnessed was indeed a defense of state capture. You, Minister, served with us in the Eskom inquiry. I said then, as I say today, we, including you, Minister, as you said earlier, will not be intimidated. We will stand resolute and determined to expose corruption and state capture and to hold those involved accountable. And may I add in conclusion that as we stand firmly, no weapon that is formed against us shall prosper. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Sir. Honourable Nkwangwa.
Well, I'm going to disappoint you today. I'm not going to say that. Honourable members, despite numerous attempts, I beg your pardon, I should start at the beginning and say...
Well, good evening. You with the SABC News channel. And of course, that is the live scenes in Parliament at the moment discussing the vote.
Rules and conventions has been allowed to take place over time, by an extended period of time. Some of us even got the reputation of being condemners, if there's any such a word. We would stand up in the House and condemn. All the time when something wrong happened, we condemned. But the issue here, Minister Gordhan, I understand the political dynamics around this issue and we condemn it, but Parliament must enforce its own rules without fear or favor. That's the important starting point, so that we can deal with those people who don't want to respect this institution, so that we can bring back the decorum and the respect for this institution, because if it loses credibility, then we're all doomed as South Africa. Despite numerous attempts, bailouts and interventions by governments to restore good governance and stabilize state-owned enterprises, South Africa's SOEs continue to face or pose rather a serious risk to the fiscus of our country. Therefore, the need for reconfiguration of some of the SOEs is very important. But we want to focus on Eskom in particular because of the systematic risk Eskom poses to the South African economy. For obvious reasons, we're not going to restate them. But House Chair, we want to particularly talk about the proposed debt equity sub for Eskom by PIC, which will, without a doubt, improve Eskom's balance sheet and will give the entity some financial room to maneuver. However, this should not be done without first addressing the underlying structural and governance challenges facing Eskom. In other words, Mr. Minister, if we're to give Eskom money via the debt equity sub, why might ask why we're calling it giving them money when it's a debt equity sub? They will not be servicing any debt, and through the special appropriations bill announced by the President during the June Sona, without first addressing these challenges, is tantamount to throwing money into a bottomless pit. Minister, whenever we walk around the country and interact with South Africans are asking, they want intricate details about how government intends to unbundle Eskom and the effect of such a strategy on Eskom and electricity generation. This is a question that ordinary members of the public want an answer to, and with all the platitudes that we've heard so far and all the confusion that has been created, they are concerned about their future, including the workers. We support the board performance evaluation framework for SOEs because we believe it's a step in the right direction and we support it, and we hope that is going to be prioritized. But as we deal with Eskom, Mr. Minister, we need to deal with the municipal debt which is piling up and deal precisely with what we prefer to term as Soweto exceptionalism. All municipalities, including Soweto, need to pay up so that we can improve the cash flow of Eskom. We can't, the hypocrisy actually starts with us politicians. When we want votes, we go there and we encourage people not to pay up. After elections, then we say to them they need to pay up. It's disheartening. I was listening to an interview when some of the people from Soweto were saying, no, I can only afford to pay 2 rands. I can only afford to pay 5 rands, making a mockery of attempts to get people and to encourage them. Thank
you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Dlamini. Honourable Minister, Deputy Minister, Directors, Members, the ANC 54 National Conference resolved that the main purpose of SOEs is to operationalize the broad socio-economic development plan of government. Transnet is one of the 7 state-owned enterprises under the Department of Public Enterprises. It operates South African ports, freight, and pipeline infrastructure. Essential of core function is to assist in lowering the cost of doing business in South Africa. The corruption, state capture, misallocation of the resources, weakening of the leadership, and breakdown of the control system have had an adverse impact of the performance of the entity. The challenge not have antenna in the ANC government is committed to turning the situation around with our OSEs. The urgency of the situation is expressed by the ANC when they acknowledged and resolved that the firm action indeed require and improve the governance and the performance of SOEs. The ANC did not just allude to the problem, but also the resolve in the same breath that the problem can be resolved by the ensuring and appointment of skilled staff and qualified board members and protecting public institutions from improper interference. Chairperson, I am happy to report that the Department of Public Enterprises has already put turnaround strategy for transport in motion, acting in accordance with the President's call for strengthening of the SOEs in order to ensure that these SOEs fulfill their developmental mandate. The ANC-led government appointed new board members, directors, May 2018. The board commitment is achieving certain and calculating economic and development goal set to the Department of the Public Enterprises. One can begin and explain the importance of this entity and its socio-economic impact. That entity is big contributor for skill and development through the various divisions. Through Oversight program, namely healthcare and train and transport, Transnet is the provided primary health and services in the rural community along Transnet. Strategies in corridors. In the financial year, more than 400,000 lives were touched by this entity. This is what our the two train through their clinics and provide general health and education, dental and eye and pharmacy services. Transnet has remained financially sustained since the inception. The last time any guarantor guarantees the issue was in 1999. This will expire in 2029. The budget is important because it is allocated fund of allowed to the proper implementation for the department and turnaround strategy. The allocation of program 2 and 3 give the department a capacity and performance in oversight and function of the turn in the situation around. The ANC supports the budget, but the Transnet is remain financially. For the first time, the many years, Transnet received a unqualified audit opinion for 2017 financial year. The opinion was based off the fact that the auditors could not verify the Transnet regular expenditure, which increased from 692 million in the 2016-2017. Minister, must be attended to the matter of agency and reported to the committee, be given the proof of progress in the regard. We note that the performance in port operations improved by 6% from 4,396 feet equivalent units in 2016 and 2017 to 4,664 in 2017 and 18. In the same vein and quality noted the pipeline volume and decrease by 3.9% from 16.9 billion litre to the 2-month closure of
Thank
the
you
fuel.
very much, Honourable Member.
ANC supports the budget.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Gumede.
Oh, House Chair, Minister and Deputy Minister, members of the Portfolio Committee, Chair, all other members present here, as well as members of the boards and the community at large. I'm tempted here, I prepare a speech, but I feel interested that most of the things I would have covered, they have covered, and I want to respond to some of the things that have been raised here. I've got a feeling that we are not honest to ourselves. We need to give credit where it is due. I think I'm only here for 3 months, and I've seen the strides that this committee has in fact made. It would be unfair that this committee or perhaps the SOEs must be abolished because they are not doing anything. It's an attempt, if we say we are in government, everyone is included. There is no one who is really excluded in this manner. Let me take you back to what I've just coined, that we've got what we call it, it's SOE's road to stability. It's my own coinage, and I hope it will work. I'm taking the president saying in 2018, Minister, I'm giving you a directive that says you must go and restore the SOEs. That is in 2018. And in 2019, the president says to the minister, now we have managed to restore those SOEs. Now I want you, as essential, strengthen those SOEs. I'm today speaking in front of you with the achievements that the boards as well as the department have really achieved. There are boards that are in place. Today there are CEOs that have been appointed. Those are all achievements that we have gained. It will be unfair, for instance, if I may talk to, because my task was to talk about Daniel. The 2.8 billion that has been requested by Daniel is the fact that we give oversight to Daniel. And in fact, if Daniel is short of money, the first port of call is us. They will have to come to us and talk about that. And I want to say that, Comrade President, after giving that, he then said, you go and do this work. I'm expecting that next year, he will come up and complete the road to the SOEs. There are achievements that many of these have been done. I have the appointment of the new boards. I have the CEOs that have been appointed. I've got companies that in fact have renegotiated. I have companies that in fact the boards are renegotiating some contracts. I have to avoid termination of the staff. They are entering into negotiations with the severance package. And importantly, there is a pipeline of plus minus 30 billion that the company Daniel is likely to get once they are flying high. I must say that it will be unfair. I thought jointly we are in a position to say we work together and make sure that we achieve what we want to achieve. Minister, you have raised something that says there is 600 million that will have to be recovered. May I add something out of that 600 million? I'm not sure whether it is relevant to raise it at this stage. That is it possible that all those people who are implicated, and there is a potential that they may end up being convicted, their bank accounts be frozen?
Sorry, Honourable Member, your time has expired.
I support the budget.
Thank you. Honourable Peel.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. the Honourable Minister, Deputy Minister, Honourable members of the Portfolio Committee, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, members of, board members of the SOEs, I observe protocol. Modula stulo, ntumele ke bolelele setjhaba sa Afrika ka bophara, Afrika Borwa ka bophara ke re. Bjalo ka lekgotla la badimo le batho, Honourable Chair, go na le polelo ye reng denying the truth does not change the fact. And ye nngwe polelo ya re denial is the worst kind of lies because it is the lie you tell to yourself. Modula stulo, bjalo ka lekgotla la ANC, we will not deny the fact that SAA and SA Express have serious problems, because if we do that, we will be telling ourselves a lie, as the minister has already alluded in the DM. But again, focusing on the problems does not yield solutions. It is in fact lead to depression. And as the ANC, we are going to avoid this depression. I choose, Honourable Chair, to focus on the solution and goals that will help the SOEs to get back to its profitability rather than their problems. Honourable Chairperson, one of these solutions is contained in the SAA long-term turnaround strategy that was presented early in February this year. Progress was made with route optimization and cost efficiencies. As the minister has alluded when he spoke, he was addressing us. According to this strategy, the airlines will create 3 business units focusing on domestic, international, and regional operations. They will share services such as finance, human resource, commercial, and legal, and each will answer to the SA board. This long-term plan includes 4 phases: arresting the problems, implementing changes, stabilizing operations, and growing the business. Already, Honourable Chair, in October last year, Dion Fredericks was appointed as the interim Chief Financial Officer on secondment from Telkom. He spent his first 3 months at SAA focused primarily on its cash flow challenges, and there are some positive improvement shown to date. As Honourable from the other party was alluding to say, it has a potential and we need to protect. Honourable Minister, as much as we have seen, or the record shows that there's improvement to date, we recommend that skilled and professional public servants should remain to their workstation in order to strive and contribute in a very high level of work. Also, the airline recently secured a loan that amounts to 3.5 billion from local lenders to help pay their 9.2 billion legacy debt. The mere fact that private lenders are able to lend SAA some money means that they also believe in the viability of the entity. So we also need to be optimistic and support the SAA. Their travel experience is very good. All of us as members of this house, we travel with SAA, that we are very happy with the service. SA needs support from all stakeholders, of course. There is no doubt that Parliament is one of these stakeholders, and we should assist SAA through proactive oversight and ensure the strategy is implemented. Honourable House Chair, the government is also playing its part, as our President Cyril Ramaphosa recently met with the chief executives of 20 state-owned companies, including the SAA and SA Express, to discuss challenges plunging state-owned enterprises. These SOEs, these CEOs were given clear marching orders by the President, and they have pledged their commitment to ensure that these SOEs are turned around. There are some of the facts that we cannot deny. And they show us that there's still a reason to keep SAA, including SA Express and Mango, on the asset book of government. As such, we are in support of the government bailing out the entities with conditions, of course. We do, of course, understand why this was not done in this current budget. In conclusion, House Chair,
Thank you, Honourable Member.
we, as the ANC, we really support the budget vote and call on the Minister
Thank
to
you,
speed
Honourable
up the
Member.
consolidation of the
Honourable
airlines.
Member.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honourable Marais.
Honourable Chairperson, the National Development Plan aims to eliminate poverty and reduce inequality by 2030. To achieve that, the economy must grow faster and in ways that benefits all South Africans. The Democratic Alliance is particularly concerned about the welfare of young people who have borne the brunt of underperforming economy. Their circumstances will not change unless deliberate policy steps are taken to offer them better educational and economic opportunities, underpinned by sustained investment in the economy. To achieve this, reform should be the byword informing all our actions. Honourable Minister, the Department of Public Enterprises should move with haste to stabilise and revitalise state-owned entities through a review of board appointments, barring board members from procurement decisions and adopting a no-nonsense approach to corruption and possible privatisation. At this point, Chairperson, let me take the opportunity to congratulate members of the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises in the 5th Parliament for their sterling work in addressing state capture and corruption. I am sure I speak the mind of my fellow committee members when I say we are all looking forward to the outcomes of the Zondo Commission. SOEs remain key drivers of investment in infrastructure, development, and as such, there should be an acceleration of investments in key infrastructure such as rail and energy. This will ensure that we increase the proportion of people with access to electricity grid to 90% by 2030, while encouraging non-grid options to those who can afford it. I am encouraged by the increased gas exploration projects on our shores. An increase in liquefied natural gas will help diversify our energy mix and accelerate job creation in the energy sector. With careful planning, we can accelerate our gas-to-power projects to produce at least 20,000 megawatts of renewable energy in the next 10 years. We must seriously consider ring-fencing the electricity economy of the 12 largest municipalities, resolve maintenance and refurbishment backlogs, and develop financing plans alongside investment in human capital. In order to ensure a reliable supply of coal for our existing power stations, an industry compact must be entered into, underpinned by comprehensive coal fields planning. On its part, Eskom should implement its coal strategy, which includes considering reinvestment in cost-plus mines to reduce the spend on coal and ensure security of supply. Eskom skuld tans R440 miljard en genereer nie genoeg inkomste om sy skuld of rente daarop te betaal nie. Wanbestuur en wanbesteding was in die orde van die dag, soos telke male aan die lig gekom het by die Zondo-kommissie van ondersoek. Alhoewel die prys van krag jaarliks steeds bly styg, kan Eskom nie sy lopende koste uit die verkoop van krag verhaal nie. Verder is Eskom se werksmerk ver te groot en moet verklein word. Verdere reddingsboeie vanaf die staat en Eskom is nie volhoubaar nie en plaas die staat se finansies onder geweldige druk. The Department and Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprise must monitor Transnet capital plans and implementation of commitments made on the Port of Saldanha. Provide oversight on the efficiency of South African ports and commitment on the Port of Durban. Provide oversight on the financial sustainability of Denel. Find a lasting solution for the rising municipal debt for electricity to Eskom, and quarterly site visits on SOE's major infrastructure programs. The performance of SOEs over the last few years has been questionable, with the duration in corporate governance for entities such as Eskom, SACS, and Denel. The Sixth Parliament should consider investigations into Denel and Transnet as suggested by the Eskom Inquiry Report Monitor and provide oversight on recommendations to be made by the State Capture Commission led by Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. The report into investigations on the Eskom inquiry and recommendations from the State Capture Inquiry should be followed up in conjunction with the portfolio committees on justice and constitutional development and police. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Marais. Honourable Chabalal. Honourable Chabalal.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Portfolio Committee members, Honourable Chairperson of the Portfolio, Honourable Minister, Deputy Minister, guests in the gallery, fellow South Africans at home who are watching. I'm reluctant to even start with my speech because the proceedings of today, they're really disturbing, honourable members, in this august house, what we've witnessed. I'll come to that. Let me stick to my speech so that emotions don't get the best of me. Former Chief Executive of Eskom, Ian McRae, tells a personal anecdote about a discussion he had over lunch in the dying days of our apartheid struggle icon and our father of the democratic South African nation, Tata Nelson Mandela. McRae, he asked, when you take office, what are you going to do with Eskom? Madiba gave him a simple answer: nothing. As long as we continue to produce cheap electricity and connect more black South Africans to the grid. I'm relating this story because I want us, as we commemorate Mandela Month, we must never lose sight of the purpose of assuming political office. It is to serve the people. Those paid to work for the people in Parliament have a tendency to stage walkouts. Today, they've outmastered themselves. In fact, they resorted to confrontation, members of the EFF. They need to fulfill their constitutional obligation to account to this House, must answer to their constituencies. Parliament is not a platform for theatrics. This is the National Assembly where the people exercise their power. The current state of some of our state-owned entities would have disappointed the generation of Madiba. However, if we cast our eye merely on a year ago, there is a reason to have hope. In May 2018, when Parliament considered its budget vote, most of our state-owned companies were under a cloud of allegation, corruptions of state capture. We are now witnessing a Tinga-style fight-back campaign. Its primary target is within Minister Pravin Gordhan, who finds himself trending almost every week on Twitter based on all manner of allegations. Clearly, this portfolio is not for the faint-hearted. Honourable Manzoni, we're alive to the task. Honourable Minister, we do not fail our people to save Eskom, Denel, Transnet, SAA, and other companies in this public enterprise portfolio. We will have failed the generation of our freedom fighters, and I'm not talking about the red beret, freedom fighters, ifeta fela. Talking about real freedom fighters. We do not be distracted from a historic mission to serve the people by those who resort to skullduggery and underhanded tactics, those who employ faceless balls to throw our leadership on Twitter. Contrary to some misinformed statements on social media, all our cadres on the ANC on the mandate, they act on the mandate of the ANC. This honourable minister and the deputy minister, they're all acting on the mandate. And the mandate says government must take firm action to improve the governance and performance of SOCs by ensuring appointment of skilled staff and qualified board members and protecting public institutions for improper interferences. Members of SOCs and SOEs who are here, I want to assure you, we want you to come to Parliament and account on the public office. That we want to assure you, we're going to invite you very soon Honorable Minister, we need governance in this OSOCs. We need stability in governance. And we want to also call in the Department of Public Enterprise, Honorable Minister, as of to date, that you need to look into the compensation. You said it yourself that we've got acting DDGs, we've got acting DGs as we speak. This is not a Bollywood. We want governance, we want accountability, we want stability in public enterprise. And I'm coming to respond to Manzuli, who tells us we must stop this department and must not exist. What a hogwash. So, Minister, please attend to that. We need compensation that this department is underspending on it. It needs to spend and ensure there is governance. The EFF is firmly in the corner of the thieves of state captures under the guise of fighting the minister. And it is time that we call them out for who they are. The DA on the other end is still pursuing the neoliberal daydream of privatization and selling of state assets and private firms. Neither of this agenda is genuinely seeking to deal with the developmental state of Africa. Let me go to responses. This speech is just going to waste my time. Manzoni, let me respond to you, Honorable. You tell us the department must not exist. You see that ISMO bill that you brought that seeks to privatize the transmission and distribution of electricity will not see the light of day. We're waiting for it. We shall meet you in the committee. And I want to reiterate what the Deputy Minister is saying is true. It's disruptive, that statement. You went to the committee when we were adopting the report and you said this is the best committee it has ever performed in the last 5th administration. Today you tell us this committee must cease to exist. I mean, what is that? And you tell us the ideologies and you say the ANC does not have political ideology and political background. Let us ask you, what is your political background? Neoliberalism will assist you. We don't even understand what's your ideology. We don't even know who formed you, under what backlogs. What is your value system as we are speaking? We don't know your identity. Let us tell you the African National Congress identity. And the identity is the National Democratic Revolution. We are building developmental state. You like it or if you don't like it, we are going to rule and we're going to govern. And the state-owned entities, they are going to continue. Let us ask you about the former Mayor Msimang allegations of Glad Africa, the one that you removed and took him to Gauteng. And you failed to also answer to the people of Tshwane. This marriage of yours on EFF that has come to fail, that you don't want to speak about, and tell people of South Africa that what is this marriage of convenience that you are doing? Right now you want to run away and you want to tell us the state-owned entities. I want to speak to this mayor of Johannesburg. The people of Soweto have marched to Eskom and all this, the Eskom board. And we want to say to you, can you go to people of Soweto and really deal and be one with the community? Can you deal with the issue of indigenous and make sure people of Kadi and Muletsani get the service? The ANC supports this vote.
Honourable Minister. Honourable Member, Honourable Minister. Honourable Members. No shouting.
So, House Chairperson,
Continue,
let me
Honourable
thank
Member.
everyone for their contributions. This is just the beginning of the 6th administration, and it's good to see that we are as lively as we should be and focus on the substance of what do we do with SOEs, what kind of positive role can they play, and where we recognize that state capture has caused immense damage to reputation, structure, finances, and operations of SOEs. Let's focus on how do we fix them and deal with those who are fighting against the recapturing of SOEs and expose them for what they are doing. I also want to share the compliments that have been paid to the 5th Administration Portfolio Committee. And hopefully, and I'm sure, the new Portfolio Committee will emulate the good work that they've done, run their inquiries into these entities. If we are falling short, tell us where we are falling short. Indeed, tell the boards and management themselves so that we get your help to actually fix them. I think we must be reassured about the fact that the President regards the fixing, if you like, and repositioning of SOEs, particularly the bigger ones like Eskom, Transnet, Entail, SAA, or the airlines more generally, indeed PRASA as well, as an absolute priority for the 6th administration. and his government. To Honourable Mazzoni, let me say that there's a lot of room to debate whether SOEs have a role to play in an economy or not. All I want to do is to draw your attention to various OECD studies as recently as the last year or two, which shows firstly how the influence of SOEs is growing in the global economy and economies more generally. Secondly, if you let me continue, you will have your chance at some stage.
Honourable Member,
Secondly,
please
sorry, Chairperson.
refrain from what you do.
Secondly, that in particular, there are models around the world, Temasek in one instance, SASEC in another, there are Scandinavian examples as well. So I think let's talk more constructively about the role that SOEs can play, and if they are functioning well, which is our job, to get them to do so, how we could actually make sure that they contribute in the right way to the economy more generally, as all of us have spelled out. I agree with Honourable Gumede that maybe we need to use the title. We'll publish a book together, SOEs, The Road to Stability. But it's not an easy road to stability. It's a tough road. When an organization is infected by corruption and theft and bad culture, then it takes a long time to actually fix it. Or there might be ANC people, there might be people from other political parties as well. The ANC is by definition not corrupt. You can get any individual who doesn't even belong to a political organization that can be corrupt. I think the essence is, can we agree we need to fight corruption? Can we agree that we do not want unnecessary bailouts for SOEs? Can we agree that we want operational efficiency in SOEs? Can we agree that we want financial sustainability? If we agree on all of those things, well, let's put our heads together and see how we're going to get it. That's a simple matter. So all we need to say is we can have our views about one department or two departments or multiple places where this needs to be kept, but at least around the areas that we agree, let's find a way as a committee, as the ministry, and as the department of making sure that we do the work that is necessary. Nkosi Buthelezi, your point about cleaning up is an absolutely valid one, and one that I think we've just all agreed to. And none of us wants to countenance corruption. But I think we need to go beyond just making speeches about corruption. We must have the courage of our convictions to do that which is necessary to show up the corrupt people and not fall for fake news and fake narratives that are run through all kinds of digital media and other things as well. This is the fake news world. This is the world where you can mislead thousands, if not millions of people as a result of things that you manufacture in some dark room somewhere with the help of some people, like Bell Pottinger did. And if we agree that we don't want South Africa to move in that direction, then and put those corrupt elements, wherever they might be, where they belong, which is in jail at the end of the day. And that's another thing that we are now agreeing with. So if we want to create the ethical state that we speak of in Nkosi, let's work together to actually do so. Do we have the political will, Honourable Vessels, to do the things that we're saying? Yes, we do. And we have the President's backing, and we indeed have ANC resolutions to back us as well. There might be some doubting Thomases across all over the show in different parties, but I can guarantee you that the political will is certainly there. And you can see how some of us have to face the consequences of having to demonstrate the political will, not just talk about it and make speeches about it. But we'll come back to that. But you make a very important point, that is that let's work together to fight corruption and the kind of lawlessness that we saw earlier on in this House. Honourable Mkwenazi makes an important point in distinguishing between howlers and doers. So let's spend more time doing and working together than howling, because I think all of us want Eskom to work, all of us want the culture of non-payment to be overcome, and in recent times there's been several incidents of violence in Soweto, for example, people resisting disconnections and so on. And I think we should collectively, across all the political parties, if we have the national interest at heart, call on the people of Soweto and those few that are involved in these activities to stop these activities, because this is economic sabotage at the end of the day. And it undermines Eskom's good efforts to begin to become financially sustainable at the end of the day. SAA is certainly a challenge, and so are the airlines. And you can see that many airlines across the world are consolidating in one way or another. And give us a few more months to not only look at the finances of the airlines, but to critically examine whether there's an investment case that government has, and how do we go forward. What we do have a commitment from government on, across previous administrations as well, is to invite a strategic equity partner into the SAA fold, but you can only do that when SAA is in good enough health to attract a partner. So we can't have partners being attracted in the current state as we actually see it. There are many examples around the world. I think Sheikh Imam, the Honourable Sheikh Imam has actually left us, where SOEs work well and their management by government works well as well. So look at SASIC, the organization that has management and control over 96 Chinese SOEs, and look at their performance, particularly in the last 5 years or so. And they are judged by financial indicators and operational indicators, and some of them are the biggest companies that you will find in the Fortune 100, those of you that are actually familiar with that. Maybe we need to lock up some people too, in order to get the things that we want to do at the end of the day. So, honourable members, what I'm saying, and I concur with Honourable Swart as well, that the time for prosecutions has come, the time for putting people to the test of being in front of a judge has also come, and you cannot have endless exposures undertaken by investigative journalists about all sorts of transactions happening, and the way in which these people mask their activities is by bullying and shouting down other people in various fora. Honourable Kwankwa, there should not be any Soweto exceptionalism, as I pointed out earlier on, and the effect of Eskom restructuring, as we said, will be covered in a paper, and I outlined for you, I think he's gone already, Chairperson, the kind of future that we see for Eskom, and once we have that, we can start debating that in this forum as well. I want to agree with Honourable Gumede that perhaps in addition to recovering the 600 million that we see currently, there needs to be more firm action taken by the asset forfeiture unit, firstly to freeze the bank accounts of people who are culpable of theft from the state, but secondly to seize the assets that they've bought with stolen money as well, and the kind of luxurious lifestyle that they lead from stolen money. So perhaps we need to have some discussions with the asset forfeiture unit in this particular regard to ensure that the right things happen to these people that are concerned and who have been extracting public funds for their own benefit. Honourable Murray, boards have already been extracted from any involvement in procurement, you'll be happy to hear. Eskom is certainly setting aside money in the current year to invest in cost-plus mines and take a U-turn in this particular regard after the bad effects of the whole Optimum Gupta saga that it has been through, which was exposed by the committee in the 5th administration. And certainly keep an eye on the capital expenditure at Transnet, because that's where a lot of the theft actually took place. So, honourable members, in conclusion, thank you for your various contributions. Thanks once again to board members and the leadership of the various SOEs, and indeed the department itself, which has worked under very difficult circumstances. And I want to conclude by saying that the choice that we have is either perpetual conflict and destabilization of SOEs and institutions for perceived short-term interests, or a broader commitment to a common national interest that makes South Africa great, and a force for good and a force for human dignity for all South Africans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you, honourable members. The House is officially adjourned. Thank you. There is also sitting that is taking place around here. National Treasury is taking place here.